The politicians in Idaho who proposed a bill that would hide eviction filings from landlords say that the bill will actually help landlords. It will not. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and once again, it's coming out of the state of Idaho. Now, I've covered Idaho twice in the last 2 days, and that's really kind of surprising considering normally I'm not talking about Idaho at all. So, yesterday's video was actually about how the state of Idaho is trying to block the city of Boise in particular from forcing landlords to accept Section 8 vouchers. Well, there's some more progressive nonsense going on right now in Idaho, and they're trying to basically block landlords from being able to view eviction filings, right? They say, oh, there's no reason why a landlord should be able to view this stuff. This is going to benefit landlords by passing this bill. It's a bunch of garbage, okay? We need to have the most information possible about every single tenant that we put into our properties. Why? Because we're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that we have invested into these properties, and we do not want to put the wrong person in there because it will cost us dearly. Okay, I have personally lost tens of thousands of dollars to bad tenants who didn't pay me, who tore up my property and treated my property like garbage. And so I want to put the best tenants in there possible. I need every single piece of information. If a tenant has had an eviction filing, that is a good indicator, regardless of if the eviction completely went through the entire court process. It is a very good indicator that this person does not pay their rent or does not pay it on time. So that's enough to get me to say, okay, I don't want to rent to this person. And you know what? I believe every landlord should have the opportunity to see that information. So when I see that somebody's trying to block this information, the only thing that tells me is, it's kind of like somebody saying, oh, well, we want to get a person who didn't pay their credit card bill on time and remove that information from the credit history report so they can get another credit card. So you're going to allow this same person to screw a second credit card company over? Why would you do that, okay? Is this how you operate your business? But then again, I forget, politicians don't operate their own businesses. They're in the business of government. They believe that, as long as it's somebody else's money, it doesn't matter. Well, you know what? That's a bunch of garbage, okay? So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Do you think it's a good idea to remove eviction filings from the view of us landlords, okay? Do you think this is going to benefit us like these politicians do? These politicians actually believe that this is going to be helpful. You know what? I don't know if they actually believe it. I think they're just saying that personally, but you know what? Maybe they do. Maybe they actually, in their twisted minds, they believe that, oh yeah, this is going to benefit landlords. I'll explain exactly how they think it's going to benefit landlords as we go through the article. So let's get into it. This article, once again, is coming from BoiseDev.com, and it says, bill would shield dismissed evictions from public view after 3 years. Yeah, well, personally, I want to see the evictions forever. I don't care if it's been 3 years. It could be 10 years later, and we're still talking about a person who isn't the best tenant. So anyway, let's get into the article. A new piece of legislation would allow tenants who faced an eviction suit and got it dismissed to keep the black mark off of the public record later. On Friday, Senator Ali Rabe, a Republican from Boise, and Representative Clay Handy, a Republican from Burley, brought a bill before the Senate's Judiciary and Rules Committee they say would help tenants who struggled to pay rent in the past to land jobs and housing. Rabe said the bill would also benefit landlords by giving tenants an extra incentive to pay their rent to head off an eviction instead of letting it go through. Yeah, that's pretty dumb, okay? Oh yeah, this is going to help landlords because this is going to, convince tenants to pay their rent on, rather than letting the eviction go through. No, that's not going to help landlords at all. You know what? if it motivated them to never get to the eviction process and pay their rent on time in the first place, maybe I'd agree with you. But after you done spent thousands of dollars on an attorney and lost months of rent, you're like, oh, well, now I'll pay you. Thanks for nothing. I still got a garbage tenant up in my property. Yeah, maybe in some far off place in your mind, this is a good idea, but it's not. It's not. Simply put, that person, whether the law was in place letting us view the evictions or not, they could still pay their rent and pay the money that they owe the landlord. But you know what? That's just not going to happen. This isn't going to motivate these tenants. If they're unable to pay, they're unable to pay. So you know what? They got to go move on if they can't pay their rent. And we should be fully aware of what happens. Because, as I've mentioned before with these sort of laws, right? There are so many cases, and I've personally gone through this, right? File the eviction, the tenant just moves out. Okay, they didn't go through the whole process, no. But imagine the tenant, still owes me thousands of dollars. Of course, I just gave up on trying to recover that money, right? And, they've got no marks on their record saying that there was even an eviction filed. This happens a lot. Okay, this is the reason why we need to see the filings, because not every single eviction goes all the way to the point where the sheriff is literally locking the people out. Okay, it doesn't work like that in reality. So yeah, when they're trying to hide this information, they're hurting us. They're hurting the future potential landlords who could easily screen out these tenants and then end up stuck with a dud, essentially. Right now, if a tenant in Idaho doesn't pay their rent on time, a landlord could issue a 3-day notice. Tenants who don't pay in 3 days get an eviction filed against them in a fast-moving court process once they get a court date. If they haven't paid by that date, they can be removed from their home for non-payment. The eviction, whether it was dismissed or not, is then available on the state's court portal for the foreseeable future. Right? Anything wrong with it? Not in my opinion, no. And it should be up to the landlord's judgment, their personal judgment of what they are willing to accept, whether they take that tenant or not. So, if I personally looked at an eviction or a rental history of a tenant, right, and I said, oh, this person has an eviction on their history, but it's 20 years old, and then they have, let's say 5 or 6 additional landlords since then where they paid everything on time, their credit is top notch, they have the income level necessary to be able to rent my place, I might take a chance on that tenant, maybe. Other landlords might say, no, I still think that's a little bit too risky, considering that I have 10 tenants over here with no evictions on their record at any point in their life. Okay, so like I said, it's our judgment. It is up to us and not the government to decide who the best tenant for our property should be. And that's what my real gripe with this is, right? The government is trying to step in there and then force us to make decisions that we don't want to make. Okay, it's like, hey, the other issue I covered from yesterday with, forcing landlords to take Section 8. The government wants to force you to take Section 8 tenants. The government wants to force you to take people who have evictions on their history. The government wants you to take people who have bad credit, who have horrible criminal histories. Okay, people who don't have the income necessary to actually pay the rent. They want you to take all these people because they're like, oh, well, we need you, the landlord, to solve the affordable housing and homelessness crisis. And the only way you can do that is by throwing all of your prerequisites out the window and getting stuck with a garbage tenant who can't pay the rent, who's going to trash your property, who's going to treat you like crap, and expects to live for free. That's what they want. Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not playing that game, okay? And no landlord should. So, interesting article, interesting story. I suggest you read this article on your own because, you know what, this is the same kind of stuff that is being passed all over the country, including here in the Midwest, including by, if you notice in the article, these are two Republicans are the people who are proposing this nonsense, okay? So it doesn't mean one political party is any better than the other one. What we have to do is we have to look out for ourselves, look out for our property rights on our own, and fight against any nonsense that local or state or federal politicians are trying to pass that can hurt us.